Hey everybody, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast, brought to you alongside our friends at Coam. I hope you're all doing well. Normality seems to feel like it's restoring itself a little bit. You guys might be back at the office, some shops have opened, it's all getting rather exciting, isn't it? But this week on Giant Talk, I'm delighted to have Brian Mallory with me from ACS Embrace, based in South Africa. Brian, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Lawrence. Good to be here.
Awesome. So in a little while, we're going to be talking about, do OKRs actually work in sales team? Is really going to be the theme of the conversation. And I'm sure it'll become obvious which side of the answer you lie on, Brian. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, who ACS Embrace are and what they do, and your role there.
Sure. Okay, so basically, ACS Embrace is a local South African enterprise resource planning software company, and the website is embrace.co.za. And in essence, my role currently within the company is doing high-value business-to-business sales. Now, my background is strictly in high-value business-to-business sales, and I've started in telesales, moved to field sales. I've done sales management. I've done high-value business-to-business sales training. I've also been based in Johannesburg, South Africa, as well as London, England, and back again. I've sold globally on different products. And over the years, I've basically acquired the skills to become a change catalyst. So as the head of any sales organization, as they'll know, it's like herding cats. So you've got to be equipped. So in essence, to effectively change the behavior of the sales team, you need to be really an expert in time management, problem wants management, performance management, motivation, and goal setting. And obviously, you need to be an expert in sales. And so that's, luckily, I'm an expert in sales, as well as sales management, which are two completely different skill sets.
Sure.
But for the last eight years prior to joining ACS Embrace, I was doing high-value business-to-business sales training and teaching people what the top 10% of the world's best sales professionals do differently and how they can apply those same skills into their own environments. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about ACS Embrace.
Okay, interesting. So your role with ACS is both a sales role and a management role then, is it?
No, funnily enough, it's just a sales role.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So whilst I've dropped down the ladder on the job title side, I'm starting to climb the ladder on the learning side, because I've got the sales management skills and how to change performance within the sales side of things. But what really interested me about this company and enterprise resource sales management or enterprise resource planning is that as ERP as a whole helps you improve the entire organization. So I wanted to expand my knowledge of influencing the business and just taking a holistic view of things. So lot to learn.
Sounds good. So when did you first come across OKRs then, Brian?
Well, funny enough, back in the day, they all started out being called KPIs. But I'd read a book called Jack Welch and the GE Way, and this was ages ago. This was going back to about the year 2000, so 2 decades ago at least. But Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric. They were one of the best performing shares on the American stock market. And I read this book, and it just fascinated me that they had all of these terms that I'd never heard of before. There were terms which were lean manufacturing and Six Sigma and how everything was measured and managed. And it just fascinated me because at that point, there was nothing with regards to sales. And I read this book and I thought to myself, how could it possibly be applied to sales? I mean, it's such an intangible type of art. There was no science to it, really. or none that I could put my finger on. And then what I did is I started actually applying my mind to it, and then I came up with a set of measurements for sales, which I then implemented in my sales team. And from there, it grew. I then started weighting the different areas, putting in averages, benchmarks, and it really became a super powerful tool that dramatically increased the performance of my sales team's results. And, the results went from good to great.
Okay. So how do you formulate the OKRs within ACS then?
That's okay. Well, firstly, it involves a lot of brainstorming with the team and a lot of buy-in. So they can't be something that you just implement and tell people this is what's going to be happening.
Right.
So as yet, OKRs aren't a part of the software offering, but luckily that's something that I hope to be involved in when the when the development of that comes out and is rolled out. But it's something that needs to be brainstormed with the teams, and certainly you need to understand what you're looking to achieve clearly before you go and implement it. So yeah, I mean that's the short version of that.
Okay, so you have a strategy piece that you're already aligning into, do you, before you start with your OKRs, or do you use the OKRs to help you formulate your strategy?
It's understanding the strategy first of what you want to achieve, and then understanding what you want to do in terms of some activities are going to be input activities and some are going to be output activities. So the output is the end result of your effort. So in a sales environment, people may be phoning outbound, but that may confuse them because that's just an input. The sale is the output of their effort. So it's making sure that the correct measurements are put in place and understanding what it is you're looking to achieve. Because in essence, what you want is you want for people to be productive. You don't want for them to be busy. And if you encourage and measure the wrong thing, then you can lead your team into disaster. So it's critical to understand the difference between busy and productive, and knowing clearly what those activities are in any given organization.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's an important definition for OKRs. Is it's not about measuring, what you're calling input, but what we would actually call output, and we would say it's about measuring the outcomes rather than the output. So yeah, it's not the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Beautifully said. Yes.
Yeah. If you ring 30 people and make one sale, or ring 2 people and make one sale, the outcome is the same, right? It's one sale. It's one person's just going to spend a whole day doing it. The other person's going to spend half an hour doing it. But they're achieving the same results, and the result is what we want to measure.
100%. It's about the results. Granted, you need the activity to get there, but we're all hired in whatever role we're in. We're hired to achieve the end result, and you either did achieve it during the month or you didn't. And if you didn't, what are the correct steps you need to take in order to achieve it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned then when you were reading Jack Welch in the GE Way, you obviously found that very inspiring, and then it led you to what you classed as from good to great, or to high performance, I suppose. Yeah. How do you define what high performance is? I mean, that sounds quite subjective to me.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened is when I was in London, I started as head of telesales, and I had 5 team members, and they were cumulatively reaching about 30 to 40% of their sales target per month. And the worst sales performer of the team was making 279 phone calls out to get 1 sale back in. Then, 2.5 years later, I'd grown the team to 24 members, from 5, and cumulatively they were doing 105% of their sales target, and they had an average hit rate of 25 calls out to 1 sale back. So that's basically an 11-fold increase in sales effectiveness. And, as a team performance, it was 105% of the required target made. So that's definitely, a good to great story right there. And it couldn't have been done without the implementation of the right measurements and having those measurements and tools available for them. Yeah.
Okay, so what were the measurements and tools that you started to push them towards over that 2.5-year journey?
Well, what I did is basically I first brainstormed it with my team, and we originally had 3 areas that we were measuring, and it was the most basic. It was the number of sales that they were making each month, and if you hit your correct amount of sales, you would score 60 points. And then we had their call rate, and if you hit your required amount of calls for the month, you would hit 20 points. And then we had the hit rate, which was basically dividing the amount of sales by the amount of calls, and then that gave you your effectiveness rate. So how many phone calls you were having to make to make 1 sale. And then from that, you could see, well, maybe I'm having to make 75 phone calls in a day or 75 phone calls to reach 1 sale or to make 1 sale. And then from there, you can see, is this person achieving 75 phone calls to get that sale in the correct amount of time? Because they either have to phone more to reach their target, because some people will only be doing 50 calls a day, but in actual fact, if they were doing 75, they'd be able to reach their target. And then we were able to establish, okay, so here we can see they either missed their target or made their target. And then thereafter, we introduced things like product knowledge as well. And then it was, in essence, 4 areas. It was their target, their call rate, their hit rate, and a score on product knowledge as well. And to be clear on how I scored them on product knowledge, what I would do is I would go and sit in the boardroom, and then they would have a telephone call with me, where I would, in essence, play the part of the prospect. And what I was marking them off on was the right questions to be asked for that particular product that they were selling. I was not marking them on what they were telling me about the product, because telling is not selling. I was marking them on what they were asking me, the right questions to be asking me about that specific product, to uncover the needs for me to be able to recognize I have a need to purchase the product. So that's a critical factor, is to make sure that when you're testing on product knowledge, you're actually testing them on the right questions to ask around your product, and not, are they putting across, did they mention this feature or that feature or the next feature? So we had a massive improvement, but it was only done because of the correct OKRs being put in place.
Koan is a purpose-built solution for managing your OKRs, helping your teams achieve their objectives, getting them aligned, and absolutely helping them stay engaged. Sharing spreadsheets simply doesn't scale when you're trying to grow a business. With Koan, you can scale OKRs across your entire company whilst keeping the teams motivated and moving in the right direction. Now, Lawrence, there's lots of things we love about Koan, but tell me one of yours.
So, I've got to say, one of my favourite things is that Koan just allows you to have a bit of fun with the OKR process.
Yeah.
In Series 2, I think it was episode 3 of this podcast, we actually spent about half an hour, 40 minutes talking about the importance of making OKRs fun for your team.
Yeah.
And Koan allows you to do that perfectly.
Yeah.
Even just things like adding a GIF to your reflections adds some real personality. And I think I probably waste far too much time each week looking for the perfect GIF, to be honest. But it allows that fun throughout the organisation, and that's something that's really important if you're going to keep people engaged.
You are known for having the best gifts.
Thank you very much.
In the team, definitely. So if you would like to find out more about how to make OKRs fun whilst using a great system, then pop along to Koan, that's koan.co/giants, where you'll find also a great paper that we co-wrote with them on how to build accountability and collaboration using OKRs.
So you mentioned then that it's really important that any team, actually, not just the sales team, we just happen to be talking about sales team, but that they fully understand the objectives and they're involved in the objective setting when they're being created. Do you also expect your sales teams to accept accountability and responsibility for those metrics, or do they sit with you as team lead?
It definitely lies on the team members themselves. And, one of the big areas where it's easy to fail as a sales director is to tell them, okay, Brian, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the next thing, based on both of you sitting together and looking at the screen and reviewing that person's results for the month. That's the normal sort of thing that we'll end up doing. But in order to get the best results from the person, what we need to be doing is asking them, okay, Brian, these are your results. How do you think you landed up improving your score in this area? From last month, we can see that you've now scored 8 more points in this area. That's a nice improvement, Brian. How did you do that? And then what happens is that person whom you're speaking to, they then tell you how they managed to increase their effectiveness in that area. And what that is doing is it's creating an opportunity for them to speak about what they did well, which embeds it. You want to encourage the good behavior, and then, albeit that us as sales directors or sales managers will know where they haven't done well and why. If we tell them what they haven't done well and why, then they've lost the learning opportunity. So in the same manner, you could ask that person, okay, Brian, so I see your score dropped over here by a few points. What is it that happened? Or what do you think could do differently? And then basically that person now gets the opportunity to say, okay, well, this happened. And whatever that point may be, sometimes it's going to be an excuse and sometimes it's going to be a reason. And we need to know the difference between the two. A reason is something that should be changed to accommodate that particular point. And an excuse is where they've just not taken any accountability or responsibility for their role. They're pointing the finger externally, and we should just ask them more questions to get them on board. So in terms of how to get the best out of the OKRs and who's responsible, the people who are being measured are responsible. The world right now, where we're at, everybody hates the truth and everybody hates personal accountability and responsibility. It's basically swear words. But people want, especially salespeople, people want to be held accountable. People want the opportunity to improve. And if you give them the tools and show them how they can do it, they will grab it and they'll run with it.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because I think what people want actually is autonomy and flexibility, not
100%.
realizing the prerequisites of that are accountability and responsibility.
100% right. It was Daniel H. Pink. He wrote the book Drive, a fantastic book. And Drive is all about motivation. And he talks about 3 different areas. He talks about mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So part and parcel of me making sure that my team is motivated daily, which is the most important thing, is making sure that the goals that they set for themselves are intrinsic versus extrinsic. If I go in there and I say, okay, guys, we've got this fantastic sales incentive this month, and this is what it is. Well, that's an extrinsic goal. That's me imposing a goal onto them. Yeah, hopefully it would be nice, but for sustained motivation, you need an intrinsic goal. So the sales director needs to do goal setting with them. And to make it really powerful, add in their purpose. Mm-hmm. So what is their purpose when they are phoning to try and set up an appointment or to try and make a sale? What is their actual purpose? How does the product that they sell add value to the person's life whom they are trying to call and set up a meeting with? And once they understand their purpose and once they have their own intrinsic goals, their level of motivation increases exponentially. Now you give them the tools to be able to have mastery and autonomy, and they're going to absolutely fly. And the mastery is the OKR system that helps them to understand how they can improve and where they can improve. And of course, the autonomy is that it's the art of asking the right questions to your sales team that helps to empower them, as opposed to the very easy trap to fall into, which is to tell them what to do to improve their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So, I mean, people do tend to have a view that OKRs don't work in sales because of how monetary and goal-led it is. We're obviously starting to get a picture of the side of the fence that you fall on. I'm interested, though, when you've used OKRs in the past with sales teams, have you set them as stretch targets? Because I think that's one of the main reasons they fall down, is that traditionally sales teams like to have a very hard goal that they are set, and like we were just talking about, motivators, that their motivators are often set according to that hard target. You get 80% of your sales, you get 80% of your bonus, sort of thing. And I think that's where there's often a disconnect between OKRs and sales teams.
Yeah. It's so certainly stretch targets. You need to have, I would say, stretch targets, but also attainable targets. One of the things that I did is I implemented a benchmark for my team. That 70 points out of 100 is the benchmark, and then, as opposed to their own actual score each month, there would be the team average. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is, when I would speak to them, I wouldn't talk about the team average. I would talk about their own performance. And I would never, ever, under any circumstances, go, hey, Lawrence, you scored 61 points out of 100 this month, but Mark scored 90 points again. And I would never, ever point to the top sales performer. So when managing the team, we need to manage them on their own results and their own results only. And then when it comes to setting a benchmark or a stretch goal or target, then that needs to be implemented. It has to be realistic. But what I would do is, on a quarterly basis, I would review it with the team. So, for example, in the first quarter of the year, the benchmark, hypothetically speaking, is 70 points out of 100. Then the team average would come in at 71.31. So what I would then do is I would go, okay, guys, let's aim for 75. Mm-hmm. It's a smallish increase, but it's a reasonable increase, and it moves them up little by little to increase their effectiveness and performance. And of course, they love that, because the better they become, the more they earn.
Naturally. Yeah, absolutely. And people, you mentioned right at the beginning of this call that, like, you went from good to great, which is what we're talking about here, really, slowly pushing that needle. But, you were quite open about the fact that it happened over 2.5 years. It didn't happen overnight. It was a journey, right?
Sure, but these days it's so much easier. You've got the likes of a Salesforce type of software to help you out. I mean, this was literally taking a concept and building a platform. So, there weren't the helpful tools that you have today. But regardless of that, it is a process, and the process is a super rewarding process for everybody involved, and it's very easy to set up the system incorrectly, firstly, and secondly, to set the wrong objectives. So I say that because something salespeople or sales directors will often say to their team is, "Hey, Lawrence, tell me, have you followed up with Brian yet?" And that sales director will be referring to the feedback that Lawrence had given him last week, and he'd mentioned this company, Brian, and Brian sounded super keen and interested. And now the sales director goes, "Hey, Lawrence, have you followed up with Brian?" It's a normal sentence that leaves the sales director's mouth. However, it's setting you, Lawrence, up for failure.
Yeah.
And the reason why that is because most of us in sales, we've got a people-pleasing personality. So at a subconscious level, you, Lawrence, are now wanting to go and please your boss who's asked you if you followed up with Brian. So what you do is you phone Brian and you follow up with him. So in actual fact, what is now happening is you are passively approaching the phone call to see if you have a sale, versus if your sales director had come over to you and said, "Lawrence, I'm not seeing the sales order from Brian yet. Have you closed him yet?" Now, all of a sudden, now the responsibility is on you, Lawrence, to phone Brian, and your job is to close the sale. So now the onus and the responsibility of the outcome of the call is not lying on the prospect's shoulders. It's now lying on your shoulders, Lawrence. So now what that means is you're going to make an effort in order to make the sale versus phoning to follow up to see if you've got the sale. So by that one simple language observation and correction, we can set much better objectives for our team by going, "Hey, Lawrence, don't have a sales order here from Brian. Have you closed Brian yet?"
Yeah.
And then the objective changes completely. It goes from passive and no responsibility for the outcome of the call to now it's active and you are responsible for the outcome of the call. And what that does is it shortens the sales cycles as well, because the correct objective is set right there up front.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I like that. We're all about using language, harnessing the power of language and objectives, and that's a really, really interesting one.
And it's the subtleties, it's the small subtleties that end up making a huge difference.
Yeah, and it just completely changes the expectations for the employee, doesn't it? I mean, that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah,
interesting. Cool. So, been a really, really interesting discussion, Brian. I'm sure any of our listeners who work in sales teams, which I know is a lot of them actually, quite a high proportion, will have taken loads of valuable information from this. But if you were going to give one piece of advice to a company or a manager that was trying to get cracking with OKRs, and I guess specifically in sales team, if you've got what would the one piece of advice be?
It's difficult to give one piece of advice.
All right, give us a couple.
Okay, so basically, involve the team is the first thing I'd say. So get them involved, get them to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve performance improvement. So Usain Bolt doesn't get faster because the coach looks at him and goes, "Yeah, you look like you were a bit faster this time, buddy." No, it's about the measurements. That's how you improve. It's from the measurements, getting them to understand that and being involved in it. then that next point of getting them to tell you what they did and how they reached the result and what they can do differently to improve the result, getting them to tell you how they can change, that's absolutely crucial. And then, as I said, it's all down to the subtleties. Never compare them to the top performer or to the benchmark. That's for their own personal drive and ambition. Compare themselves to their own previous month's performance. And then, of course, if you want a different focus, then change the measurement. It's really that easy. And then the last point is just keep it simple. Truly keep it simple. I managed to get fantastic results across 4 measurements. Adding 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 measurements, no, you've missed the boat. It's about keeping it simple.
Yeah,
and once
absolutely.
you've got it simple, you got the buy-in, and you'll manage to effect the change correctly.
Yeah, completely agree. Fab. Well, Brian, that's been fascinating, and I think there was a couple of decent book recommendations that came out of that as well. Jack Welch and the GE Way sounds really interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people have read Drive by Daniel H. Pink, but if you haven't, highly recommend checking that out. That is a really, really good book to put on your reading list. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed it.
Lawrence, fantastic podcast. Keep up the good work, and thanks so much for having me.
Cheers. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in again. You know what I'm going to ask. If you do enjoy the podcast, please go to your chosen podcast platform and give us a 5-star review or leave a comment or whatever it is that your platform allows you to do. And of course, don't forget to join us on our live podcasts that we've started doing once a month. They're your opportunity to put any questions to us there and then for me and the panel to answer. They're fantastic. You can see the dates via our LinkedIn page. And we're also hosting monthly webinars now as well. So make sure you check those out because they're really interesting too. We do some deep dives into very specific topics on those. So it'd be great to have more people coming and watching those. But until next time, stay safe, stay well, and we'll speak to you all soon. Bye.